And later, from black hole theories to scripts for The Simpsons, a treasure trove of Stephen Hawking's works presented to the UK.
It's a human catastrophe of epic proportions. Thousands are dying every day in India as it battles the raging coronavirus crisis.
हमारे सामने उन्होंने दम तोड़ा, हम कुछ नहीं कर पाए।
मेरी वाइफ चली गई, मेरे दोनों ब्रदर इन लॉ गए और मदर इन लॉ एक्सपायर्ड हो गई।
Has India lost control of the pandemic?
If you step out right now, you step out to die.
India's COVID catastrophe. Insight tonight on CNA.
From the top stories in Asia,
a quicker, portable way of testing for COVID-19 in just 5 minutes,
to breaking news in the US and Europe.
US President-elect Joe Biden is set to formally introduce his top economic team.
With an eye on markets opening across the world.
Wall Street's major indices all closed the month with double-digit percentage gains.
It's the one bulletin that offers you a global perspective. World Tonight, daily, on CNA.
ちゃんは山梨名物のほうとう食べたいもの触れていません。
俺全部いつも奥かな。
へえ、こうやってなるんだ。
いい話。はいはい。
Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation and SMBC.
In 1977, we took air travel to a whole new level when it comes to exclusivity.
4 Singaporeans go back in time to search for more answers from Singapore's past.
What was the experience on the Concorde like?
The pilots can actually see the curvature of the Earth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
From tracking down a legendary white crocodile.
We have here the only mention of white crocodile, Buaya Putih, in the Straits of Singapore.
There's this element of, what's the truth there?
To uncovering what used to lie under an iconic building.
This green building here is very curious.
What we're looking at is the full extent of Kampung Glam, actually.
What else lies forgotten in the vault of time?
In the early days, you could just walk into a shop and buy a gun.
Wait, so back then, people could keep guns at home?
Oh, we had guns at home. My father was a gun owner.
Wow.
Watch Into the Vault 3 on demand at cna.asia.
In business news, global energy giants have suffered a big blow as climate activists and shareholders succeed in efforts to reduce their carbon emissions. Company boards at Exxon and Chevron have caved in to dissident shareholders, while Royal Dutch Shell lost a landmark case. In the US, Exxon shareholders defied management to elect at least 2 new board members proposed by hedge fund Engine No. 1. The fund launched an activist campaign making climate change a central issue. It holds a stake in Exxon worth some $50 million, just a small fraction of Exxon's market cap today of nearly $250 billion. Over at Chevron, shareholders voted 61% in favor of a resolution calling for the company to cut its carbon emissions. The company said it would carefully consider the result. In the Netherlands, green campaigners won a court battle in The Hague to force Shell to cut its carbon emissions by 45% in the next 10 years. The court also ruled that Shell is responsible for emissions from its customers and suppliers. Despite the big win by green activists against the oil majors, an expert we spoke to earlier says the success should not be a substitute for government action.
I think these are huge decisions on both sides of the Atlantic, huge events. If anything, the ones in the United States, I think, are more important because it shows that this immense groundswell of public support for more concerted action to deal with the challenge of climate change is not a European phenomenon only. This is taken hold very firmly here in the United States as well. That said, as big as these factors are, they're not a substitute for government action. This year we'll kick off, the UK will host the 26th annual climate conference. And world leaders have been getting together for 25 years to talk about doing something. And in that 25 years, global CO2 emissions have risen by 50%. And so while I think it is critical that we have more concerted action, I think, and companies have a key role to play, as do their investors, I think that's not a substitute for coordinated global government policy.
Twitter has expressed concerns over what it describes as intimidation tactics by Indian police on its staff. The social media giant tagged a tweet by a ruling party spokesman as manipulated media. The Indian government asked Twitter to remove the tag. Police also visited its office to serve a notice to its India country head seeking an explanation. Twitter has been battling with the Indian government since February. Its technology ministry had asked to block content alleging Prime Minister Narendra Modi's administration of silencing criticism related to farmer protests in the country. That incident prompted the Indian government to announce new rules to make social media firms more accountable to legal requests for quick removal of posts. Twitter has asked for 3 more months to comply with the new rules, which include appointing a grievance officer to deal with complaints. And Twitter says it's concerned the rules could mean the compliance officer could be criminally liable for content on the platform. HSBC is pulling out from retail banking in the US as it steps up its shift towards its biggest market in Asia. It's selling its East Coast personal and small business banking business to Citizens Bank and its West Coast business to Cathay Bank. HSBC expanded its U.S. retail banking in the 1980s as part of a broader strategy to diversify its geographical focus. But it has struggled against competition from larger domestic players. Earlier this year, the bank unveiled a revised strategy focusing mainly on wealth management in Asia. SoftBank Group Corp's bank loans climbed by 42% in the year to March. The conglomerate borrowed about $46 billion from its principal lenders in the last business year. The increase in borrowing was shouldered by foreign lenders, company filings show. Mizuho Financial Group was the only Japanese bank in the top 3 backers, alongside Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase. This comes as the Japanese conglomerate has been building its tech investing operations globally. Malaysia's largest lender has posted a nearly 17% rise in Q1 earnings. Maybank says demand for loans picked up pace as the economic outlook improved. Net profit for the first quarter amounted to more than $577 million, beating analyst forecasts. That's despite revenue dropping almost 8%. While the Q1 numbers suggest that Maybank has remained resilient, the lender says it remains cautious as the pandemic is not fully contained. And that's it for business. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks so much, Eugenia. Malaysia's Transport Minister Wee Ka Siong says the 2 trains involved in Monday's collision have been retrieved from the crash site 3 days earlier than scheduled. Track repairs are now being carried out between the Kampong Baru and KLCC stations. Dr. Wee says a total of 5 LRT stations will be impacted as power will be shut along the affected stretch. He adds that additional checks will be made once repairs have been completed. Currently, only 1 track will be operational between 7 stations. This resulted in an and dozens hospitalized. 2 victims had to undergo brain surgery and another needed cerebral resuscitation. Authorities say driver negligence was the cause of the accident, though further investigations will take place. 10 years have passed since the deadly Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan. Some former residents of Okuma town, which hosts the crippled Daiichi nuclear power plant, have started returning.